Hello ladies and gentlemen and movie lovers of all kind, and welcome to another Let's Discuss video. As always, I am your host, Brett Murphy, and for today's topic we are going to be looking at the best movie franchises to binge while quarantined. As I'm sure we are all well aware, COVID-19, or better known as the coronavirus, has recently been deemed a global pandemic, and that has most of us self-quarantined for who knows how long. Some of us it may be a few more days to a few more weeks. Others, it could be months. Now, of course, I don't want this video to focus too much on the more negative side. On this channel, I want everyone to be upbeat and happy and just having a good time and engaging with one another. So my goal for this video is to try and see the bright side of things. Since we're all trapped inside, we have to find something to do. And thus enters movies. So this isn't going to be a top 10 or a ranking video or anything like that. I'm just going to be rallying off some of my favorite film franchises that I think will either A, be the most fun and enjoyable for you to watch while you're stuck inside, or that happen to be some of the longest film franchises. That way it'll take up a good chunk of your time. So without further ado, let's hop right into things. Now these are not necessarily in any particular order, but I'm most likely going to start off with the film franchises that may be a bit shorter and a bit more throwaway, and then I'll get into some of my real favorites towards the end. The first one I'm going to bring up is the Jurassic franchise, not just Jurassic Park, but Jurassic Park and Jurassic World. Why? Because they're just big, dumb, fun dinosaur movies, because that's what we need right now, right? We need some fun interjected into our lives while we're stuck inside. And what better way to do it than with some dinosaur chaos? After that, if you want to stick on the adventure train, I highly recommend the Indiana Jones franchise. There's 4 films, you really only have to watch the first 3 in my opinion, but if you want a bit more kind of zany and outlandish fun, then feel free to watch Kingdom of the Crystal Skull as well. And another big adventure franchise that I'm sure you will enjoy is the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. Myself personally, I only really like the first 3, 4, and 5 are kind of throwaway, but you can still even watch them and have a good time, I'm sure. It still has that same over-the-top pirate action that you love, the same fantastical storytelling filled with creatures and monsters from the deep, and a, for the most part, lovable cast of characters. Now let's hop into some action heavyweights. First, I would recommend the Fast and the Furious franchise. Now, I know, no matter how insane and just ridiculously over the top it has gotten, it is still extremely enjoyable. Again, just going back to that big dumb fun, because that's all these movies are at this point. And since Fast 9 has been delayed a full year, you have plenty of time to catch up. Now, if you want some more grounded and much better action, I would suggest the Mission Impossible franchise. Currently sitting at 6 films, except for the second one, I would say each one improves on the last, with the most recent one, Mission Impossible Fallout, being among top tier action films of all time. If you want to scare things up a bit, I recommend numerous slasher franchises. I would stick to the main heavyweights if I were you. The franchises like Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. If you think about the Halloween franchise, you have 8 original films, 2 remakes by Rob Zombie, and the 2018 continuation. Friday the 13th has 10 films and 1 reboot. Nightmare on Elm Street, I believe, has 7 films and 1 reboot. And then if you watch both Friday and Nightmare, you can cap it all off by watching Freddy vs. Jason. And hell, I would probably even throw Scream and Child's Play in there as well. Child's Play is also getting up there in numbers with its more recent straight-to-video releases, as well as a very recent reboot starring Mark Hamill as the titular Chucky. And the Scream franchise just had a 5th film greenlit, so what better time to catch up on the previous 4? There are some franchises I would stay away from, like I personally don't really care for any of the Texas Chainsaw movies after the original, or other more out there franchises like Puppet Master or Hellraiser. Like I don't really care for those personally. I know they have their massive fans, but I would stick away from them, you know, given my recommendation. And if you want to keep the scares coming, I would suggest the Conjuring Universe or even the Insidious franchise. The Insidious franchise, I believe, currently has 4 films, if I'm not mistaken. And I believe the Conjuring Universe currently sits at 7 films. Now, I must mention that there are definitely some stinkers in the Conjuring Universe. But again, if you're trying to eat away at your time and you just want some good scary fun, you may as well watch them all. If you are really hurting because of the lack of sports, I would suggest the Rocky/Creed franchise, which as of right now sits at 8 films, 6 of them being Rocky films, and 2 of them being the Creed continuations. Now let's hop into some of the heavy hitters. The James Bond franchise, 007 franchise, whatever you want to call it, currently sits at 24 films, with the 25th one, No Time to Die, recently being delayed until November. Whether you love all of them, hate all of them, because some of them are a bit older, there is 24 films in this franchise, so you can either watch 1 a day and take up 24 days of your quarantine, or you could even watch 2 a day and that's still going to take up almost 2 full weeks of your time. After that, you cannot go wrong with the wonderful Harry Potter franchise, which has 8 films completing that story, but you can even continue on into the Fantastic Beasts franchise, which right now sits at 2, and the 3rd one is set to begin production as soon as all this clears up. And if you're looking for some real family fun, I would suggest anything from Pixar's catalog. Sure, it's not a whole coherent franchise that's all interconnected, but there are some mini franchises in there. You have 4 Toy Story films, you have 3 Cars films, you have 2 of the Finding films, you have 2 of the Monsters films, and about 9.5 out of 10 times when you see that Pixar logo pop up, you know you are in for a real treat. And if you have Disney Plus, I may as well also suggest anything by Disney's original animated team. Any of the classic fairy tales or even the more recent films like Zootopia, Big Hero 6, or my personal favorite more recently, Moana. You can also watch the Frozen films. I don't love the Frozen films, but hey, 1 and 2 are both on there, so why not? Now closing in on some of the bigger, major franchises, at least in my eyes. Now, despite the fact that it probably has the most toxic fandom in all of film, I would highly recommend getting into the Star Wars franchise. It just completed the Skywalker saga, which was a 9-movie story arc, and it also, as of right now, has 2 spin-offs being Rogue One and Solo. Again, you can find almost all of them except for Episode 9 as of right now on Disney+, and if you wanted to continue on, there's also Star Wars The Clone Wars, the animated TV series, or Star Wars Rebels. And I'll tack this one on because why not? I'm not a huge fan of this franchise except for the rebooted trilogy, but the Star Trek trilogy also can give you your sci-fi fill with plenty of films spanning many decades that you can also enjoy. The final 3 that I would suggest, and even though this one had a rocky start, and even right now it's questionable in most people's eyes, I would recommend any film from the DCEU, which is the DC Extended Universe, which holds films like Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Shazam, as well as a handful of others. The vast majority of them are hit or miss for both people, but if you haven't checked them out already, they're definitely worth getting your own opinion on. Now, this next franchise is what I would consider to be the top tier of superhero films, as well as it'll eat away a ton of time because it has 24 full-length feature films, and that is the MCU, or better known as the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yes, you heard that right, just like James Bond, which has spanned decades upon decades. Within the span of only about a decade, the MCU has managed to pump out 24 fantastic films. Now, I'm not even gonna lie to you, I am definitely an MCU fanboy. I'm also a DC fanboy. I love all superhero films, but there's just no denying that Marvel is doing it right. And as of right now, I'm pretty sure you can watch almost every single one of these once again on Disney+. Almost all of the 24 films are currently available. You can watch from the first Iron Man all the way to Endgame, except maybe a film or 2 in between. Again, watch 1 a day, 24 days. Watch 2 a day, that's still 12 days. You really cannot go wrong with this epic superhero franchise. Now, last but certainly not least of my recommendations is the Middle-earth saga, which includes the Lord of the Rings trilogy, followed up by the Hobbit Trilogy. Now, the Lord of the Rings trilogy is the best trilogy of all time, and that's no secret. The Hobbit Trilogy was another one that was really hit or miss for some people. I enjoy it for the most part. I think it's fun, and I think it unnecessarily gets pooped on a lot, is what I'll say. Yeah, some people really aren't kind to that trilogy, but I still find them incredibly enjoyable, and I'm never going to have a bad time while I'm stuck in Middle-earth for a few hours. And if you watch the extended editions, well, let me tell you, the shortest film with the extended editions is 2 hours and 54 minutes, with the longest being 4 hours and 11 minutes. So everything in there is falling in between 3 hours and 4 hours. Anywhere in between that mark, there's plenty of material to love in here. Like I said, Lord of the Rings trilogy, best trilogy of all time. So those are my recommendations, folks. Let me know what you thought of my list, and let me know if I missed any that you think should have been on here. I know in these dark times, a lot of us are very scared, and I do want to acknowledge that. I myself too am very worried about the state of everything. But that is when us film lovers have to come together and unite and try to help each other out. Recommend films, talk about films, reach out to each other on social media, support one another's channels, and just in general, try and avoid toxic behavior on Twitter or in the YouTube comment section. Like I said, the world is not in the best shape right now, and the last thing we need is more negativity. We should absolutely be coming together as a community and help lift one another up instead of put each other down. And please, above all else, remain safe. Stay inside, wash your hands, don't go out unless it is absolutely necessary. And I am here for anyone that wants to speak. Feel free to drop a comment in the comment section down below or reach out to me on any one of my social media platforms. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button, and if you want to see more content, hit that subscribe button and click that little bell icon. That way you can be notified about all of my latest uploads. And as always, stay safe, be smart, and thanks for watching. And that's a wrap. Hey you, yeah you, if you made it this far, just know I appreciate you, and while you're here, consider hitting that subscribe button.